The other day I had a thought. I wonder how much of my commute, which is around 6 miles, I could do on bike lanes or roads with a marked bike lane on them. So this morning I'm gonna go out of my way. I'm not taking the most direct route to work, but I'm trying to get to work using as much of our center region bike infrastructure as I possibly can. So there are times like right now where there's a bike sign on the road. It's not really a marked bike lane, but it is a road that drivers are supposed to be driving with heightened awareness of cyclists. Really, it should be all the time, but some of our roads are marked in that way. Sometimes it's apparent, like that bike sign that I just drove by, but like for that right now I need to turn off of Wapelani onto Allen Street. This road doesn't look at all like it's marked with a bike lane, at least not when you get on it here, but it is. It shows up, at least in Google Maps, with that green dash. That's what I'm going off of here to try and get to work. So I've got Strava running to track my total mileage to get to work, and then I've got Apple's exercise app going. I'm going to turn it off and on when I'm on bike specific ways throughout town, and then I'll see what percentage of my route that I've chosen is actually bike friendly. There are some busier stretches like this where it does say bike lane, but the way the traffic flies along here, it's debatable about whether it's actually safe for cyclists. We'll make it work. I think that's one of the biggest challenges with bike infrastructure is you can mark something as a bike lane or bike way, but you need drivers to actually pay attention, and you need that to be enforced. Here's another interesting dynamic. Sometimes the line between driver, pedestrian, and cyclist gets blurred. In order for me to get to the bike lane, I have to cross over this pedestrian crosswalk, which allows me to connect to the bicycle infrastructure. Not ideal. It would be great if the bike lane that I was just on connected with this in a bit more practical and specific way, but now I am again on a bike route. Okay, I'm on a bike path now. It's a bit strange because it's only on one side of the road, which means it's two-way traffic for cyclists on a skinny single path that could be mistaken as a sidewalk by pedestrians. A little confusing, especially if you're heading south here on Atherton, when there isn't a bikeway on the right hand side of the road. One of my least favorite parts about bike lanes like this is you always have to pay attention when you get to a driveway. This one here at Koch Funeral Homes does draw you into the parking lot off the road, so that there's a better chance drivers will slow down enough to see you, but there is a few stretches where all it is a kind of crosswalk like thing where the bike line goes over the road, and if you're not careful, drivers can run right into you. I mentioned my normal commute. It is not a straight shot to work. The most direct line would be a significant portion of time on Benner Pike. Just this week, someone came into the bike shop and said, I just moved here. I was biking to the shop on Benner Pike, and motorists were honking at me to get off the road. Is that not allowed in Pennsylvania? I said, no, it's definitely allowed, but there are roads that drivers feel incredibly entitled and don't want to have to deal with cyclists navigating them. All right, another good example here. this bike lane that I've been on now crosses the street and becomes just a bike lane on the road, not a protected lane. Again, going back to that customer who had just moved here, sometimes it feels like we are having cyclists choose between the dangerous direct route or the safer and out of the way roundabout route. And that feels to me like a unfortunate choice. I'm curious to see what my mileage is this morning and how it compares to both the most direct route to get to work, the path I would take in a car, the commuting option that I have chosen on most days by bike, and this roundabout bike pathway. All right, the road comes to an end here, but the bike lane or bike path continues on here through the edge of one of our local golf courses. Yeah, there's a cart path right there, but I don't think there's any shared cart path here. This is definitely not a direct route, but this is a really lovely route here, kind of along the 322 bypass around town. You get some highway noise, but it's kind of secluded and nice. A couple of moments like this where you're supposed to come to a stop, check for traffic, and cross over a busy road to get again to the other side of the bike path. Generally speaking, they're not bad. That one is a bit hairy because the cars come over the hill so fast, but they work okay. Just going by Slab Cabin, great sledding hill, and the stream that goes through here. And then we're gonna come up here on Voodoo Brewing. There's a new cafe here. I wish there were more businesses along the bike path, and it was designed to be a bit more interactive for the community. It's really nice that they've put a tunnel in there to route cyclists and walkers under the highway, so there isn't a road to pass there. It's a nice little stretch here that goes along Millbrook Marsh and under an overpass as well. There's often some good wildlife, at least wild birds and waterfowl along here too. Alright, first stretch here of getting off the intentional bike path. This stretch of road does have a nice, lovely big shoulder. I'm not sure why Google doesn't recognize it as a bike path or bike lane. But I will pause my bike path mileage now, and there are a couple more little stretches here before I get to the bike shop. All right, riding in through Hauserville here, there is not much of a shoulder and clearly not a bike route, but I'm getting up to Spring Creek Elementary, and there are some bike paths along the edge of their playground and fields. It cuts through this area in a nice, quiet way. It does feel a little odd to be going through a school yard, at least on the edge of it, but it does show up on the map as a bikeway, and so I keep using it until someone tells me otherwise. I'm at the end of that school bike path. There are many times where this happens. It just kind of comes to an end. And there are no signs here saying to continue for a cyclist, go right or go left. Just choose your own adventure from here, I guess. And I don't know that I fault anyone. I know that Center Region has a master bike plan. It may be that there's more to come to connect some of these neighborhoods, but I'm sure for new riders it can be disorienting to just kind of have your bike path drop off. The rest of this journey is bike lane, bike path free, but it's pretty quiet through mostly development subdivisions like this. Not bad, but again, interesting that there isn't anything this far north in town along the very busy Benner Pike to offer cyclists some kind of space or protection from the traffic. Oops, I forgot. There is one little stretch here. It's basically a wide paved sidewalk, but it is technically a bike lane. It's not on Google Maps, but it is definitely a safer right of way for bikers and scooters and walkers. And again, one more example of strange infrastructure. Bike lane ends at a traffic light with no signs of where you're supposed to go as a cyclist. And so we meander, we weave, sort of like pedestrians, sort of like cars on the road, not really fitting either one. This is the existence of a cyclist. All right, this last little stretch, I get to go on the wide but busy shoulder for Benner Pike, and then there's my final destination. I'm gonna cool down a bit and I'll fill you in a little bit on what we've learned. All right, I'm back home now. The chickens are in the background. I don't know if you can hear them, apparently excited to see me. Gonna dig into some of the numbers here that I learned on this bike path, bike ride to work. Just for some context to start with, if I would hop in the car each morning and drive to work, the total distance is 5.6 miles. That's the straightest shot, mostly along Benner Pike. My normal commute is 6.61 miles, so just a little bit longer. It's a bit more meandering through Hauserville and near Millbrook Marsh. Gets me off of Benner Pike. It's not as straight of a shot. It's not on protected bike lanes necessarily, but kind of the best of both worlds, I guess you could say. Not on a busy highway, but not the out of the way bike route. The route that I created for my ride to work today turned out to be 9.14 miles. So significantly longer, almost a third longer, 3 miles longer. And it took me 45 minutes instead of my normal 30 minutes. I got almost 7 of those 9 miles were on bike paths. Pretty cool to be able to do that in our town. But again, some trade-offs. I don't know how much more I'll do that bike path route to work. It is certainly takes a bit more time, takes a bit more miles. It is nice to be off busy roads, but as I mentioned while I was on my bike, there are some good things about a bike lane and some things that are a little perplexing and not always ideal. I hope you enjoyed that comparison. Let me know what your commute looks like if you ride by bike. And if you don't ride by bike, I'd love to hear the reasons why. What's standing in your way if you're a cyclist but don't want to commute to work? Maybe it's just showing up to work a little too sweaty. I totally understand that as well. All for today. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.